Come join Melissa and her guests on the Chats from the Blog Cabin podcast. From North Carolina, this podcast will have you feeling like you've known these folks for years. Listen in as they chat about life, culture, current events, and more, all with a special Southern flair. Curl up with your favorite beverage and get ready to be entertained. Tune in now for a unique experience that's fun and insightful.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Chats from the Blog Cabin. You know, the show where I virtually invite people into the blog cabin to chat about life. And today we are chatting with Victoria. She is a spiritual therapist, the author of Polly Parker Meets Her Shadow, and we're going to be talking about her book later on. But welcome to the show, Victoria, and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm happy to be here, cozying up in the cabin. Well, to tell you about me, let's see, where do we start? I've done a lot of different things in my life. I left college when I was a senior to help run and manage a family restaurant, excuse me, and then went back and finished my degree. And after that, I ended up going into Chamber of Commerce management. I became Mrs. Ohio actually first in 2001. And from there, I had interviewed with a lady who offered me a show host for a cable television show. And I did that for 3 years. And then 9/11 hit. And, you know, no one was spending money on advertising dollars. Get this frog out of my throat. And so I decided to go a different route. That's when I was offered the position of the Chamber of Commerce. And I ended up at the state chamber after I worked my way up and left that in 2011 because of this nagging all the time, continually urge to talk about life, talk about things that you talk about in the cabin. And, you know, the main word that I use to sum it up most of the time is emotions, because to me, they're so powerful. They direct the course of our life, our success, our happiness. And we're really not ever taught, at least not formally, you know, maybe within the family, but formally we're not taught anything about that. So to me, it's just so important. And that's where I live my life now, writing and coaching and talking about inner space. Star Trek, which I'm a fan of those shows, Star Trek says space, the final frontier. I think we should say inner space is the final frontier.
Yes, I totally agree. Why do you think that emotions are like, it's almost like if you show emotions, it's like a taboo in our society? Why is that?
I know, I mean, I don't know where we point a finger and say this or that. It's hard to say, but you know what? We can recognize it. We can recognize that it is taboo. For men in particular, my goodness, you got to be tough. You got to be strong. Don't cry. You're weak if you show emotion. And so many women are doing the same jobs in the workforce that men have done typically for decades. And so I think a lot of that is rubbing off on women too. And so generally it's just there. You can't go into a board meeting and sit there and cry about what happened at breakfast. It's just not okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we get the message. However it comes, we get the message. Keep those things in. Don't air your dirty laundry. That's what I heard growing up. Mm-hmm. Don't air your dirty laundry. And so yeah, that message I think comes through loud and clear. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of conversations like this to change a cultural message. And I really think that the world is open to it. We're hearing more conversations, but it takes, when I was doing Chamber of Commerce work, we'd always say it would take 8 times of saying one positive thing to undo one negative thing. Mm-hmm. So we just have to keep talking and keep saying it's okay to have emotions. And it is more than okay. It is so important because emotions truly are our superpower. to be separated from it is an extreme disadvantage. If we talk about manifesting, that's been a subject that we've been speaking more of in recent years.
That's like the key word now lately.
Yes, we hear it a lot. So sometimes it gets floated around so much it loses its meaning. But really, truly, if we believe in our heart, we take away that fear, and we believe that the things that we truly desire, that we wish for, we can manifest that. We just have to get away from that fear. And the way that we really make it happen is by putting emotion behind it. If you can already say you're really hoping to meet someone special and fall in love about relationships. So if you can get yourself in a place where you can already visualize that person in your life, feel the feeling of what it would feel like to be in that loving relationship. Make space in your life physically, clear out the car so there's room for someone else to sit in the car,
Yep.
Clear your schedule so you have room for dates on Friday night. Like really make room for that in your life. That is setting the energetic tone to attract that. That's manifesting. That's truly manifesting and putting emotion behind that feeling behind it. That's how we make things happen. So emotion is way more than just some mushy-gushy stuff. It is truly a superpower.
Yep. And it's so funny. This is like the 4th or 5th time I've heard the word superpower in the last 3 days.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not kidding.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Huh. Well, we're talking about it.
Yep, we are.
Was it in regards to emotions or regarding something else?
It's in regards to emotion because I'm in the process. I'm actually in a mastermind writing a book about my life. And they said, how I told you right before we came on that my podcast is about giving people voices because I wasn't heard when I was little.
Yes.
And they're like, your voice is your superpower. And then you keep talking about superpower. So it's like confirmation that I'm on the right road.
Oh, beautiful. And that's the way it works. Yes, that's beautiful. Yes, that's your voice. That's your story, and there's going to be other people that relate to that as well. Yeah, let's share our story and lift each other up. All of us share our stories.
Now, you said at the very beginning that you had a really, it had been nagging you for a while that you need to go into this emotion. How long is a while?
If I recognize all the different symptoms that I had, it goes all the way back to my childhood, honestly. Even before I was a professional in the career, I always felt like there was something that I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't know what it was. And there's lots of stories. I mean, I had a modeling career when I was 15, and my dad thought he was sending me to charm school. I don't usually talk about this right up front, but this is my story. So I think he thought he was sending me to charm school. And then when all the managers at the school wanted to take me to New York and actually do some real modeling, and I had like 3 big offers come in, he turned everything down and said it was a dirty business and no daughter of mine's going to have anything to do with that. And that was all I could picture in life. I had my whole life planned out from there. I was going to do this modeling for a while, build up some funds and some resources, with connections, and then go and start my own business. I had my whole life planned out. It felt like I was meant to do. And I felt really lost after that. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe it was because I wasn't on my path. I felt like a fish out of water, but it might have been more than that too. So everything happens for a reason. That experience was probably meant to shape me as well, because all of our good and bad experiences, they all teach us something, and they bring us into the person we are today. And we can take all those lessons and learn from them and give them back to others. So yeah, really that feeling went all the way back to my teenage years, like 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you had that, was it a aha moment that you're like, I have to do this? Or was it more gradual, like, okay, now it's time to do it?
Well, we try to talk ourselves out of it. Our brains are so powerful. Technically, our heart can override our brain in our actions in a day-to-day situation. But when you're factually making decisions, we always rule with our brain, right? That's the way we've been taught. That's the way I was taught, think it through, be logical, be smart, have facts, support your decision logically. I learned, and I think a lot of other people as well, that to just listen to our heart and follow passion, follow emotion, that's just nonsense. That is nonsense. When it is the exact opposite. Your heart is more powerful. Your heart is connected to your soul. Your soul knows your journey, your purpose. And that's where we're going to feel the most joy. Our brain cannot talk us into that. We have to connect with who we are inside, the inner space. And then that is where we will find our greatest joys if we will follow our heart. That's it. And you're most, it's not only does it bring the most joy to yourself by following your heart, but you can give the most joy to other people as well. And it's really what it's all about.
Do you think that's why a lot of people say our society is so angry, is because they're not following their joy, they're not following their heart?
We've been separated from it. I think that's a very good point. It's quite possible. It's got to at least be one factor for sure. Yeah, because you can't try to make yourself be someone else or be this mold or that mold. This box works for that person and we want you in this box. Or you have to do this to be successful, and you have to do this to be respected. You have to respect yourself. And that's only going to come from following who you are. You can't respect yourself if you're trying to be someone else other than who you are. It's not even possible. It won't work. So there's going to be a disconnect, and there's no joy in that. Very much so.
We need to take a brief commercial break. When we come back, we'll start talking about your book, and you're going to read part of your book, correct?
Yes, it'll be exciting.
All right, here we go.
The threats women face today are unparalleled and even more dangerous than ever before. 1 in 3 women globally has been the victim of an assault. Women are terrified, and they are looking for answers.
In the book, Street Smart Safety for Women, we draw on our experiences, both personal and professional, to provide those answers. It's by women, for women. Street Smart Safety for Women is available wherever books are sold.
And we are back with Victoria, who is a best-selling author and a spiritual therapist. And we'll get into what a spiritual therapist is in a minute. But she wrote the book, Polly Parker Meets Her Shadow. And she's going to read part of her book. And then we're going to talk about that part of the book. So go for it.
Sounds good. I'll explain the premise a little bit so that it makes sense.
Okay.
So when Polly Parker is the main character, the story starts when she turns age 14 and she meets her shadow, which in this world, which is really a very clear reflection of the world we live in now. But we have to make this one exception that we can actually physically see our shadow side. So each and every one of us has a shadow side. Carl Jung coined that phrase, I believe, in the 60s. And it basically houses our hurt feelings, our pains, lost knowledge, hurtful memories, things like that. All that gets housed in our shadow side, and we carry that around with us every day. It can get kind of heavy at times, if we're not processing it through. So in this world, when kids turn 14, they can go through this procedure to physically see their shadow. And those are the seers in the story. Mm-hmm. There's also the shadow dodgers. That's the largest group of people who avoid seeing the shadow. And then there's the free thinkers. And that's another small group of people that are actually controlling what goes on in the world. And they know the power of the 6 secrets. And they're trying to keep the seers from discovering the 6 secrets because they know that they're going to lose the control that they have enjoyed having if all these people keep learning the 6 secrets. These is ancient wisdom that they've been trying to hide. So Polly's parents, her grandparents, I mean, actually invented this separation technology. So it's in her blood to do it. And she chooses to see her shadow. And she goes to higher realm school where they have the opportunity to discover the secrets. No one can tell them to you. You have to find them for yourself when you're ready. And this is when she's discovering her very first secret. So we're going to pick up from there. So she's just talked to a new friend that she's met, and she's starting to figure out some things. And she says, with this new awareness, I realize the importance of staying grateful, even when there are challenges, since we never know where they'll lead us. I recall Dr. DeVoe's words, the reason for things is not always obvious, but if you stay aware, you'll know soon enough. It clicks. I realize maintaining gratitude requires trust because more often than not, learning where a sad event lovingly leads takes longer than one day. Keeping gratitude doesn't wipe away the pain of loss. It wipes away the resistance to greater good. I look down at my shadow. It's a shade lighter. I take this as proof that gratitude belongs to my true self. I feel certain I found my first secret. It's the master skill of gratitude.
I love that. Gratitude is so important in life. It's because gratitude, that's when things start looking up for you, when you start being grateful for the things that you have in your life instead of being ungrateful. Instead of looking at what you don't have, look at what you do have. And it can change everybody's perspective.
It really does. To throw around that word you've been hearing for days again, that superpower word, gratitude is a superpower because it's like an energetic frequency. And if you look at the laws of the universe, one of the laws of the universe is the law of attraction, similar to the law of gravity. That's a law of the universe. We cannot change gravity. I mean, we can try, but it works the way it works, no matter how we manipulate it. The same for the law of attraction. So if you're thinking positive thoughts, you're thinking how much you have in your life to be grateful for, you are going to manifest, using that word again too. We're going to attract, law of attraction, attract so much more to be grateful for, because that's where your thinking is. That's where your heart is. So you're attracting what you're thinking about. It really is magical the way it works. Mm-hmm. It's just magical.
Yes, that is so true. What made you decide to write this book? I know you just said you were a Star Trek fan, so obviously it's the outer space, the realm, and things like that. I can see that. But what made you decide to kind of focus on like the young adult?
When I was 14, I had a feeling that I was going to write a book that focused on young adults. So I don't really know why, other than it was a feeling. The only intellectual thing that I have to add to that is that obviously we know teenage years, junior high years, middle school years, those are complicated years. That's when things start changing. Kids are increasingly getting one foot in adulthood and still having one in childhood. And, you talk to a lot of teachers, they'll all say starting middle grade, it's where things can get complicated for kids. So why wait till we're adults and we're trying to figure this stuff out on our own? And we do this sink or swim method. We learn a lot of things the hard way, school of hard knocks. So how much nicer would it be to know these 6 secrets when you're needing them the most, and then have them available to use your entire life? That's pretty great. So yeah,
What has been the feedback for the book?
I'm telling you, it has been so great. It's been beyond my wildest imagination. We've got adults reading the book. We've got college students reading the book. The main characters in the beginning of the story is 14, and it covers the first 2 years of her life. So typically, kids like to read up a little bit. So that would put the target market at ages 12 to 16 right in there. But we've got younger kids, 11-year-olds reading it, 9-year-olds, because it is a simple read. I like to keep things simple. It's a fairly easy read, but it's a really good story. It is a fictional story, not to get confused. It's very much a fictional story. But along Polly's journey, as she's trying to discover these 6 secrets and pretty much save the world, then we get to learn them with her, because there's a prophecy that says that the more people who learn the 6 secrets, once we eventually kind of tip over this threshold, then we've reached a point where we kind of outnumber the free thinkers, and we get to this place where there's no turning back. So Polly's trying really hard to learn the 6 secrets. She feels like it's really important, almost like the weight of the world is on her shoulders to learn them. And we get to learn them with her. So, but it's a really fun story. And the technology is fun. The nature is fun. It's a really nice environment. I loved writing it. I hated to quit writing it because I loved being in the world so much. Like, got to go sleep sometime.
So do you think you'll have more books coming out that's kind of similar to that? Or
Yeah, for sure. We've got more planned after this. Yes, for sure. And we actually give a little inside tip here. We did have someone approach us about turning it into a movie already.
oh wow.
We're a long way off from making that happen, but we definitely have some interest, and they would be very good at doing it, because they know how to. They've had award-winning films before, so it would be a good production company. So we'll see.
So wow. So what did you learn when you were writing this book? Because you talked about how you this book, the emotions were nagging you all throughout, and you finally decided, okay, I need to shift, and then you wrote the book. What did you learn as you were writing it? What did you learn? What you thought was the book the way you thought it was going to go, or as when you were writing it, it took a totally different turn?
Yes, exactly. I learned so much writing this. I could write a book on what I learned writing the book. And to this day, I'm still learning. The book is still teaching me, like, oh, well, it'll explain, I'm like, oh, that explains why that's in there. Yeah. And I had no idea. Usually this is not my first book, but I've written nonfiction in the past. Don't Date a Dud is one of my other titles, or Love Happily Ever After. I did some work with Jack Canfield, who did the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. We did some work together. So all that stuff has been nonfiction. And this is my first time writing fiction. It is so much fun to write fiction. You can just make things up. But when I sat down, I literally had no idea what I was going to write about. I just sat down, and usually when I'm writing nonfiction, I have these little note cards, little index cards, and each one will be a chapter, and I'll have kind of bullet points that I want to cover in the chapter. And then you can just pick a card and write through. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing on this. I just sat down and let the words pour out, and it was really a lot of fun. Lots of fun.
When you originally started Polly, was she? Did you? What's the word I'm looking for? I blanked on the word. Did you model her after anybody, or was she modeled after you, or was it somebody else?
I relate to Polly a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's impossible. And if you haven't already started writing your book, you will know when you do start. We work as authors, we work from what we know.
Mhm.
So it's kind of almost impossible to not model your characters after some compilation of people that you know, because that's what you know. So yeah, she's not a specific person, but I'd say she's a compilation of people that I've known, and so are the other characters in there too. She has a group of 3 friends that are also compilation of people that I know, and they're great kids. They're really great kids, and they've got their quirks, and they kind of feel like the misfits going in because they've got this free thinkers group discovers them day one, and they've got their number, and they're after them, and they're making fun of them for their choices, and it's a lot to navigate. It's a lot to navigate, and I think kids today are navigating a lot of stuff. Speaking of which, if you don't mind me sharing some statistics with you here real quick.
Go right ahead.
Okay, great. So this is a study, and I thought this was not necessarily positive, but interesting. So a study done by the National Institute of Mental Health. And they were studying kids after 10 months of the pandemic.
Mm.
And the study showed that their brains aged 3 years in 10 months in this 10-month period. And it aged in a way that is comparable to kids who experience violence or neglect or family dysfunction.
Mm.
So the parts of the brain involved with memory and emotions, that's the hippocampus and the amygdala, those parts got thicker, so harder to use. And the cortex, responsible for executive functions like problem solving and self-control, that part of the brain got thinner. So, teens reported a lot more anxiety and depression and a lot more internalizing of problems during this period of time. That's what the study showed. So go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask you the age group of that study.
It focused more on teens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had a senior that was during that pandemic that it like took her back, like she regressed back so far.
Is
Now
that
she's
right?
anxiety ridden. She doesn't like to go out and like to be in crowds and things like that. And I think what her life would have been so different if
Oh,
the pandemic
man.
hadn't hit, because she didn't have a normal ending to her high school career because she was online the whole year.
Especially that senior year. That's
Mhm.
such a big one. You
Yep.
look forward to that one your whole high school career is when you get to be top dog.
Yep.
Yeah, but like we said before, we've all had rough experiences. We've all had good times and bad times. And I have to believe that those bad times shape us.
Mhm.
There's things to be learned from it. So yeah, you want to mourn that loss. Sure, mourn that loss. That's important. But then start easing over to, well, what did I learn from it?
Mhm.
What takeaways? This was bad. This hurt. I'm going to leave. I'm going to say it's okay to feel hurt about that, and then I'm going to leave it behind. Yes, it hurt. Yes, I don't have to carry that with me anymore. So what did I learn about that? And if you write those things down, if your daughter writes those things down, talk about manifesting, because you've taken what is something you can't see, a thought, a feeling, and you put that on paper. You are already manifesting it because you've taken that and made it something physical, a 2-dimensional physical piece of paper. Well, technically the paper's 3-dimensional, but yeah. So anyway, you've made it a physical thing. So that way you have to formalize your thoughts more so to write them down, and that helps work them out. And then you can actually list the things. Okay, think about it. What did I learn? What what lessons can I take away from this? And take the good and leave the rest.
For sure. Now let's get on talking about what a spiritual therapist is, because I know a lot of people are thinking, what the heck is a spiritual therapist?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those woo stuff or something.
I know.
So let's talk about that and how you fell into that, really, too.
Spiritual doesn't necessarily mean religious. A lot of people, I think, initially associate that term with organized religion.
Mm-hmm.
To me, spiritual is just something not physical. Let's keep it really simple. It's just something not physical. So it's the divine. However you look at, it could be God. Some people look at it as a universe. Some people look at it as a field. There's all different versions of that. So it's just not the physical. It's in the interdimensional. To me, not working with that element is like working with our hands tied behind our back. Mm-hmm. So that's my perspective. So if I'm coaching someone, and I've been coaching people since I left the chamber world in 2011, and I always come from that perspective, because we've talked about things like law of attraction. We've talked about gratitude. We've talked about how important these things are, what superpowers they are. So to me, we have to incorporate those things into our healing to really get where we need to be. And I don't work with people for years on end where we're just having conversation after conversation. Usually we can get somewhere pretty darn quickly. It doesn't take that long. We can start identifying key issues, core issues. And I like to get to the root of the subject, and then we can work through that pretty quickly and get some tools in place.
So take us through a typical client. What is the first thing, like when they come to see you, the intake, what's the conversation like? Because I know a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't want to go to a therapist. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to do this. I want to tell you secrets. So, a lot of people are really, everybody's so scared of being judged, so scared of not letting their authentic self out that, so how do you get them to open up to you?
All right, that's another conversation that needs to continue evolving culturally. In the meantime, we first recognize that I just preface it with my opinion, first of all, if you don't mind, that absolutely every single person in the world needs a therapist or a mentor. However you want to term it. A mentor is a nicer word, comes with less baggage, I think, than therapist. Mm-hmm. So let's just call it a mentor. Every single person needs a mentor in this world, hands down. There is not a time when you don't have a bad day or some kind of issue that you're working through that wouldn't be really nice to have someone who you know is on your side, who's on your team, who cares to help lend perspective to an issue and talk through it. Everybody needs that. If you don't have that, it goes unattended to and you stuff it down, you keep it down there. There's no place to go with it. So absolutely everybody needs it, hands down. And I think that's going to be more the jobs of the future myself, is way more therapists, way more mentors in our schools, however that evolves. So when I'm meeting with someone, I like to include the divine. I always pray on my own before a client gets there. Please guide us, give us the right words, give us the open mindset, and show us what we need to talk about today. And I do the same thing with a person when they're there, and I invite them into a safe space. I want to make sure that they feel comfortable and invite the divine in to be with us and support us and surround us with love. And we go from there.
Wow. So has there been one client that you didn't think, like, I know there's people have certain, let me phrase it right. Hold on. There are certain people that work with certain clients. Like you're not everybody's not going to want to work with you because you may not jive, or you may not. Has there been one client that you're like, yeah, I can't. I'd love to help you. I want to help you, but I think you'd be better off talking to X, Y, and Z about this, because this is not either my field, or I want to help you, but you're just not opening it up to me.
Yeah, I can't say that I've met that person yet, but I know what you're saying, and it could very well be. And if that situation arose, I would have no problem recommending someone else. Yeah, I would have no problem with that.
Can you tell us some of the success stories of, like, maybe some general stories of your clients, so the people, if they come in contact and they contact you wanting to work with you, what they would get?
Well, I really don't focus on the coaching so much anymore because I'm really enjoying the writing so much. So I've really scaled back on the coaching a lot, but I still carry all that experience with me, and I pour that all into my writing right now. But I did have a gentleman who he wanted to play basketball when he came through high school. And for various reasons, he didn't feel like it was something he was allowed to pursue. So here he is coming back in his 20s and still not wanting to let that dream is coming back to him. And so he went out and practiced and worked hard, his body in Olympic shape, got his mind in Olympic shape to believe this could happen. And at that point in his 20s, when he hadn't even played in college or anything, went back and got on a team.
Wow.
It's pretty great.
It's amazing what your mind, once you get in the right mindset, because you mentioned mindset before, once you get in that right mindset, what you can achieve.
Yes. Because back to that superpower again. I mean, it's just our minds can do so much. I've heard it said that we only utilize 90% of our reverse that. We have 90 to 95% more to use. We only use 5 to 10% of our brain power. So, I mean, just imagine when we get that much further down the road. My goodness. Yeah. So if we could really understand how powerful our thoughts are, and we can manifest our thoughts, I mean, we're just going to be watching our thoughts every day and just putting the best ones out there. Why not?
For sure. I mean, the world would be such a nicer place and such a better place if we put our best thoughts out there instead of all the negativity that we just seem to be soaked in.
We just can't deny the divisions that are out there right now in a highlighted form. I mean, when has history seen division like this between black and white, Muslims and Catholics, vegans and carnivores? I mean, there's just these extreme divisive issues everywhere you go, and it's easy to get caught up in those, and not saying those things aren't important, but to get caught up in them, that keeps us in a place of fear and distress and controversy. So if we can just focus on the 6 secrets, basically, and elevate ourselves, then we'll all be in that place. We'll all be in that place.
For sure. Now, what is up next for you now that Polly's out there in the world?
Well, I'm going to be talking about Polly forever because I love her. I love her world. She will surely have a sequel, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm actually going to be putting myself on a retreat coming up next week, actually, because I'm going to be answering those questions for myself. How can I best put my energy out there? I thought about taking I was kind of feeling like going on like a meditation trip to Brazil or somewhere and sitting in a jungle for a week and talking to the animals and just really being heavily in nature and totally disconnect from social media and all that, and just focus on myself, kind of put myself through strategic planning, so to speak. So instead of having the budget to go do that, I'm just going to try to do it on my own. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm going to have my own personal strategic planning next week. And when I come out of that, I should have a much more solid answer on direction. But it will certainly involve talking about the things we're talking about today forever. It's just how exactly I can best use my energy to be the most effective. So maybe we should talk again in a couple of weeks.
Maybe so. You're more than welcome to come back on, because I think it's important that we take time out to refocus. Like sometimes you think you're going one way and then there's a shift and you're like, wait a second, now I see. You talk about the divine, I talk about God. That's who I am. But God, like when I started writing my book, I was like, okay, God, I'm writing it, but now as I'm doing it and I'm writing it with these ladies, I'm like, that is not the book that I was supposed to write. And it's shifted the whole perspective on it.
Wow. Isn't that fun? Mm-hmm. I mean, just go with it, right? Just go with it. Let yourself be led, That is spiritual therapy. That is it. That is co-creating with that element every day. Where does that guidance come from? Where does it come from? There's something out there. So I always think of it like this, because it's radio technology. I mean, that's technology that we've had for how long? Many decades. We've had a radio. Yeah, everyone knows it. We understand it. We know it works. We take it for granted. But to me, even that, it seems incredible. How is this radio frequency just traveling through the air, and then I dial in my radio to a frequency and I pick it up?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see those frequencies coming through the air. I mean, that's something that we use in our everyday, but to me, that seems pretty cool. So it's a frequency thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just 100%. A frequency. Yeah.
You have to be open to the messages that are being sent to you too.
That's it. That's that frequency, because you get on a frequency just like the radio with whatever your connection is, and you get on that frequency and you have that communication. That communication is coming in a two-way street. Mm-hmm. That is a beautiful place to be. Beautiful place to be.
For sure. Now, our time is almost up. Before we talk about where people can find you and where they can find the book, is there one last little nugget that either we talked about and you want to make sure that people remember, or something that we haven't talked about that you want to kind of add to the conversation? The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I would just say, believe in yourself, hands down. If nothing else comes from this conversation, but us being reminded to listen to our internal voice and follow the dreams that you see in your mind, the dreams that come to your heart. That's your blueprint. That is your blueprint for your reality. And it would not be there if you weren't meant to follow it. So just believe it and do it.
I like that. The blueprint for your reality. I love that 100%. Now, where can people find you?
I do have a website. It's victorialowery.com. Real simple. Victoria, there it is, LOWERY.com. There's more information on me there. There's contact form. And if you want to get in connection with me, those emails, they all go straight to me. And you can find the books there too.
And you also can get it on Amazon, because I pulled that. I totally forgot to have that up there for you, but I pulled that while we were talking so people can look and find it on Amazon. So.
Very good. Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Apple, all those major online retailers. It's at all of them. So, yeah.
So, Victoria, thank you for coming on. And yes, I would love to have you come back on and talk about your personal retreat and what you found out about it, because I think that's very important, that we need to take time to reassess our goals, because there's so many times people are stuck in a career that they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, which flows over into other parts of their life. So it's important to take stock and take time out.
Well, I'm going to take a lot of notes and I'll happily share them, and we can all have our own strategic planning retreats.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, Victoria, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay, guys, I will put in the show notes everywhere you can find Victoria, as well as finding her book. And y'all, I cannot stress enough, it is important that you get in touch with your emotions 100%, because I'm finding that now. That sometimes when you hide your emotions, when they come back up, it's like you're fighting a bear in the woods. But it's important to get in touch with them. And Victoria, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing about Polly and for writing the book so that young adults, teens, or 12, you said from 12 to 16, right? Correct? That they can get in touch with their emotions before they hit adulthood, so that they can use their superpowers, as we said.
Yes. And just have a good time. It's a fun story. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right. Until next time. Bye, guys.